I secured this job at Sanofi as a scientist. So a lot of my background was in molecular biology, molecular cloning work. And so at the time, Sanofi was looking for someone with this job description with a good molecular biology background. So that's where I came in and I was able to secure this position as a scientist at Sanofi. Um, and we mostly work with designing mRNA vaccines.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's PhD talk show by Biopatrika. I am Shiny, your host for today, and we have with us Dr. Debadrita Pal, who works as a scientist at Sanofi. So, welcome to the show, Debadrita.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Biopatrika, for doing this talk shows. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So to start with, could you please introduce yourself briefly? I mean, where you come from and your scientific or academic journey.
Yeah, so my name is Debadrita Pal, and I am basically coming from Kolkata, West Bengal, India. And I started off my journey like by doing so my bachelor's and master's both are from University of Calcutta, Calcutta University, and so that I got interested in more like the molecular biology and genetics part of the biology. So I always knew that I wanted to go for a PhD. I just didn't know where or how to go there or how to get there. So after when I was like finishing up with my master's, I transitioned into like doing this like GRE exam and a TOEFL exam. So I looked into those on the internet, and I finally I was able to like get through those exams and apply to universities here in the US, and I got this opportunity to get into New Mexico State University, which I was really lucky because my transition from there to the New Mexico State University was very smooth. And this is a university located in a small town. It's a very like university town. I really like the place. It's a very near and dear to my heart. And I was really lucky to get my PhD advisor, Dr. Brad Schuster, where I did my PhD pretty much on cell and molecular biology. My area of focus was on oocyte maturation. So I worked a lot on um, looking at live cell divisions using fluorescent microscopy, confocal microscopy. So yeah, and I looked at different proteins that were involved in these asymmetric divisions, role of these proteins, because it's very important because if you don't have a good oocyte maturation, you don't get a proper fertilization. It could lead to a chromosomal aberrations. It could even be fatal if you don't have a proper haploid gamete to begin with. So that was a very important research that I did as a PhD student back in New Mexico State University. Following then, I went for a postdoc at Syracuse University, where I was looking at a tissue which is also known as a left-right organizer. So if you know, in our body, we have our organs positioned in different ways, like the heart is positioned on the left of our body, and the rest of the organs are positioned in a certain way. So I was looking at this tissue that is basically responsible for setting up that body axis, and I was doing that in zebrafish embryos. So a lot of people work on how this tissue works, but I was working on how this tissue is made, because this is a transitioning phase in development where this tissue like comes together, does this left-right patterning of the body, and then it disappears as the embryo develops. So that's kind of what my work was for my postdoc. And then moving forward, I secured this job at Sanofi as a scientist. So a lot of my background was in molecular biology, molecular cloning work. And so at the time, Sanofi was looking for someone with this job description with a good molecular biology background. So that's where I came in and I was able to secure this position as a scientist at Sanofi. Um, and we mostly work with designing mRNA vaccines. As you know, like Sanofi is into this field of pharmaceuticals where like they're designing drugs and vaccines and stuff. So I'm pretty much in the high throughput DNA department here at Sanofi. Mhm.
Oh, that's very interesting. I must say, your PhD and postdoc work was truly very interesting, and I'm sure, like all the insights you got from the research you have been doing, definitely benefits human health in the broader picture. So, yeah, thank
Mhm.
you for sharing that. Devadrita, you mentioned that right during your master's or towards the end of your master's, you kind of knew that you wanted to do a PhD and
Mhm.
PhD abroad, especially like mainly US. So,
Mhm.
could you mind like sharing a little bit on, what are the different routes? Like you did mention you Googled some of the exams which are given, which many of us and many other students who
Mhm.
wants to come to
Mhm.
US know about it. But were
Right.
there specific institutes or, mentors back then in your masters or during this transitioning period who really helped you, choose your university, the New Mexico State University? So if you can like very briefly just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. So, when I was doing my master's back then, I did not know anybody in the US, like who was staying in the US, because a lot of people, like now in the days, like there are so many people who are like, oh, this person stays there, or like at least have like mutual contacts where like, oh, my friend's friend or like my friend's friend's sister stays there. But I pretty much did not have anybody who was in the US, especially as a student, that who could guide me through the process. So I was pretty much by myself, and I was trying to figure out things like how to do things. So that was when one of my professors back in my master's mentioned something about an institute called the USIEF, which is United States India Educational Foundation. So that was one of the things that I came across, and they were at the time doing some free seminar sessions where they would call students who were at the time they were PhD students. They would call them to give talks, which I have been an integral part of. Like after I came here as a student, they invited me for several of their talks to give seminars. But at the time, so I was doing these like free seminars that I was spending my time to go to SIEF. So there are about 4 or 5 branches that I know that are there in India. Like obviously, like there's one in New Delhi, there's one in Mumbai, there's one in Kolkata, which that's the one that I was going to. There's one in Sikandrabad. I forgot where the other one is, but there's like about 4 or 5 branches. And one of the things that you should know when you're sitting or are thinking about sitting for these like GRE or TOEFL exams is that where do you really want to go? Because at the end of the exam, I don't know if anything has changed over the time, but at the end of the exam for GRE, there used to be a questionnaire that would ask you, okay, put your 4 institutes that you would like to opt for. Um, with me, like I wasn't even ready, so I didn't even know what to opt for at the time. But later on when I was going to like USIEF and going with my GRE score, and I was like, I don't know what to do, where to apply. So a lot of the people, what they think is like, oh, applying for GRE means like I will always go for the top 4 universities, but that's kind of not how it works. If you're applying, whatever score you have in your GRE does not really determine the things that you or where you want to go. So USIEF in that respect had guided me a lot because there are people, experts in this field who are constantly guiding students into okay, so there's a certain range of score that you get. So where should you apply? So obviously you want to go for the top tier universities. You would want to like if there are four options, I would go for like a top tier university. You would want to go for somewhere in the middle, and then you would go for also the lower tier universities, so that at least there is a chance of getting chosen into one. So if you apply all top tiers and you don't get chosen into any, would not be very fruitful. If you get chosen into any of the intermediate or the lower tiers as well, you can come to the US and then decide if you want to make a switch. So I guess that would be a more clever route to go. And USIEF certainly, because they are helping students constantly, they know because there are certain universities that are good for certain subjects. So for me, I didn't even know New Mexico State University. And I was like, is that even a part of the US? Because there were several people asked me, oh, New Mexico, is this Mexico? Well, no, New Mexico is a state in the United States. And it's right next to Texas. So if you've heard of Texas, you should know that New Mexico is just right next to it. So I guess USIEF in that matter had guided me like, okay, with this the score that I had at the time, they said, okay, you want to go for biology or molecular biology. New Mexico State University is a pretty good option because this particular subject is very good. So I think that really helped me a lot. Um, Other than me doing my own research on the net, I think USIEF was a great help.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean, like, this is really useful, a piece of information, I think, for our viewers, especially the
Mm.
young viewers who wants to come to US to for their PhD. Definitely reach out to USIEF if you do not have any mutual friend or relative staying in the US who could help you, essentially, then definitely this particular organization is of great help
Mhm.
in choose helping you choose the course as well as which university could be a good fit. So thank you, Devadrita, again
Mhm.
for sharing that. So yeah, that brings me to your current role at Sanofi, and you did briefly mention that you are working at Sanofi now after your postdoc. So can you walk us through your hiring process, how you landed up into this particular job?
Yeah, so when I was looking through jobs, like I wasn't really actively looking into jobs, but I was really I wanted to make a switch into industry, and Sanofi at the time was doing an online seminar session that I pretty much it was online. So I was at the time I was doing my postdoc, so I was imaging zebrafish embryos under the microscope, and it was a dark room. If you know, like when you work with fluorescent microscopes, like it's a dark room, and I was sitting in this dark room, sitting with my computer. I was like, okay, Sanofi is doing this particular this online seminar. Why not I log into it? So I logged into it. I put in my resume, and I think what happened is like I believe that that's because I was also reaching out to people on LinkedIn, trying to see if I can make connections to people that could give me a potential referral. But I think where I got chosen was from this career fair that was organized by Sanofi. So that was great. So they reached out to me like asking like if I was interested. I said obviously yes. And then I had to go through, one was a phone screen by the recruiter, and then followed by a phone screen by or a Zoom screen by the hiring manager, followed by a whole day of interviews by different people, like essentially like different people in the team. So it was a whole day of interview, and pretty much the following next day, I got a call in the morning from the recruiter saying that I was hired. So it was a smooth process in transitioning for me.
Okay. I mean, I must say that a career fair can actually help you land into your job, right?
Yes. Yes.
So definitely, I think anybody looking for an industry switch definitely should go to career fairs which are being held around in the universities. That could help us build connections.
Mhm.
All right. And then you are at Sanofi now working as a scientist. So how does it feel? I mean, like, how does your day-to-day work at Sanofi look like? How different is it from what you were doing in an academic setting?
Yeah, so in an academic setting, um, it's pretty much working around the clock, like 24/7, because you work in the lab, you come back home, and then you read papers, and then you plan your experiments, and then you potentially, like if you're a postdoc, if you're wanting to apply for grants, you have to write grants. So there's a lot of things that are involved with being in academia, whereas in industry, you come to work, you work in the lab, you definitely like, you need to read papers. You can squish in reading papers within your work time itself. And once you go back home, I personally try to give time to my family. Um, Unless it's like a huge requirement that I have to sit with my computer, I try to spend more time with my family. So I have more flexibility and a work-life balance working in an industry. Definitely in terms of work, in both academia and industry, you own your own work. In academia, you have more flexibility of the kind of research that you want to do. Okay, I want to chase behind this because I'm curious. Well, in industry, you could chase behind something that you're curious, but then if the industry requires you to, let's say, oh, we need to deliver this XYZ vaccine by da 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 date, and that's when you have to like pretty much stop what you're doing, and then you have to focus like all hands on deck for that particular deliverable to get out. So that's one of the things I like about industry, though, is that whatever XYZ vaccine or drug or whatever that's going out, that's going to be directly beneficial to life, like humans, which is has a direct connection, which is what I like the most about working in the industry, and it gives a good work-life balance. So.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. That's very important. A
Mhm.
good work-life balance. So
Mhm.
that's great. Um, So while I was listening to this, I kind of remembered that I skipped a very important question for you, which is definitely related to immigrations and visas. The previous people whom I've interviewed so far,
Mhm.
including myself, we all of us have come here as a postdoc. So we came here on a J1 visa, and then the further process was a little different. But
Mhm.
since you came here as a PhD, I'm assuming you came here on an F1 visa, F1 student visa,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
definitely very different from J1. Uh,
Yes.
so if you can like share your ideas of what can a person do being on F1, how can they switch into industry, and then what are the
Yeah.
different options which are available out there?
Yeah, sure. I think so. I came in as a student on an F1 visa. I had at the time I had my own employment, so I had my teaching assistantship or research assistantship as a PhD student back then. So I was pretty much independent and was able to also save for myself. Um, and following that, so F1 students have a flexibility. If you're in the field of STEM, you could have 3 years of optional practice training, which is the OPT. So you have 1 year of OPT followed by 2 years of STEM OPT. If you're in some other field other than STEM, you would have 1 year of OPT, followed by probably you would have to switch another visa. So if you're on STEM OPT and you get these 3 years of 3 years of optional practice training, following that, your company could either apply for an H-1B, which if you're in an industry has a cap, so it has a lottery system, so it goes through a raffle. So if you're selected, you would go and get the H-1 visa. If you don't get selected, then the company can also apply, depending on how outstanding of a researcher you are. They can apply for what's called an O1 visa. And then further going up the climbing up the ladder, you if you are like exceptional, then the company could also like apply for EB1B. In case of an industry, you go for an EB1B. If you are in academia, let's say if you're doing a postdoc and you want to go after your OPT expires, you could go for H1B directly. And in academia, you don't have to go through any raffle. The H1s in academia are year round. So at any point in the time in the year that you are in, the PI can apply for an H1B for you. In academia, you would have to essentially sponsor yourself and own your own EB1, but that would be EB1A, which in case there is like three criteria at least that you need to fulfill, which includes like publications, citations, if you have reviewed others' works, if you have media coverage, if you have so these are all kinds of things that come into play when you are applying for that. EB1B, which the industry would apply for you, essentially requires only two criteria to be fulfilled. The O1 visa pretty much is very similar to EB1A, and does require three criteria to be fulfilled. So these are all like the different visa types that you can go for. And then the EB1 is pretty much the green card, which ultimately is what you would ideally want to go for.
Okay, okay. I mean, so there are a couple of different options which people can go for, and depending on what their prior visa was, and if they are in academia or in the industry, and I'm sure there are lawyers to also assist individuals if
Right.
they are lost or they do not know which path to choose,
Hmm.
depending on their profile or their job. So,
Hmm.
yeah, no, thank you. In short, I think this is very helpful. All the different visas which
Hmm.
any person who is in STEM can look forward to. So, yeah, I mean, now you are in an industry, and whether a person plans on going to industry or not, what are the different skills which you think one should either focus on, or like something which really helps you in the long run in your job, in your career, be it in academia or in the industry. And by skills, I mean like definitely technical skills, but
Hmm.
also some important soft skills which you now feel is improving or
Hmm.
has benefited you, something which you have learned during your PhD and postdoc is helping you now.
Right. Yeah, so I think in terms of technical skills, it depends really on what field you're in. For me, it was more of developing the molecular biology skill sets that I am applying here, working as a scientist. But other than that, the soft skills that you would potentially want to acquire as you go forward in your career path would be like people management, like project management. So let's say you have two different projects. Which one should I finish first? How well you can juggle and handle both at the same time, or more than two. Like let's say you have three or four different projects going on at the same time, and you're managing all of them. So you should know how to do that kind of work. Other than that, I think communication is the key, like whether it be your manager, whether it be your PI, your advisor, whatever you may call, but that communication is a key. So you keep communicating. I feel like the more you talk about your research, you get more ideas from people. I guess that's one of the things. And then selling your work is another important part. Like you do a whole bunch of work, but how well can you sell it, or how well can you communicate your work with the people around you so that you can have everybody on board? What I believe is you need to, like, when I present personally, like I try to make everything so sound so simple that everybody who's listening to me, even though they are probably of a different field, so that I can have them all on board. So not make your work very complicated to the public. So that's how you could communicate better with people, is what I think. So these are all different skills, like presentation skills, like how you want to organize your presentations, how you talk, how you communicate. These are all the skills that would come handy when you're going forward in your career.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I totally agree. I think they're really important skills
Mhm.
one should have, and I think we during our PhDs we just acquired them unknowingly, and then later on we realize, okay, these are the things which we have learned over time, and
Right.
they are helpful. So yeah.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean that brings almost towards the end of our conversation, and so before we wrap up, Devadrita, any thoughts or insights that you would love to share for our viewers, something which we have not covered in this?
Um, yeah, I guess so I have had multiple people, multiple aspiring students who have reached out to me asking like several questions that are a part of the also the questions that you asked me that I have answered. So I guess um I've had so many people, so which is why I also reached out to Biopatrika so that I wanted to convey all of these information more and more to aspiring students who are willing to come here. I like to help students because I know I was in their shoe at one point. So if I can get somebody to be coming here or be successful, I feel that's a good achievement. Yeah. So far I have had six people that I have helped. They are now in the U.S. And they are like PhD students. So I feel really great about that. Um, yeah, I also want to say that, the one of the key things is that when you're climbing up a ladder or you're thinking of climbing a ladder, it's not that hard. You just need to focus on your own steps that you're taking. Take one step at a time. Don't try to jump steps. That's not how a ladder would work. And I guess just I want to say, like, don't look, just focus on your own path. Don't look into 10 different people. Oh, this person's doing that, and why am I not getting there? Well, you will at some point, but I guess taking one step at a time is very helpful. Being calm, composed, and patient. Um, so you just believe in yourself, and you will get there. So that's what I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And definitely patience is very important if we are in a research-oriented career path.
Mhm.
I think that's really something which helps us like remain sane, I guess so.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and
right.
and I also love the fact that how you are trying to help others because I
Mhm.
remember talking to somebody when I was like I am still currently looking for industry jobs, and I received a lot of help from many people so far, and the
Mhm.
only thought I get from all of them is that if you're receiving help now, try to pass it on to someone else when you're in
Yes.
this position. So definitely
Yeah.
that's amazing. So yeah, I mean, it has been great talking to you, Devadrita, and um, thank you so much for taking out time and speaking to us and sharing these very useful information. And I'm sure me as well as all of our viewers are going to draw a lot of important thoughts and information from this interview. So thanks a lot, Devadrita.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.